I'm writing this on Friday, October 17th, 2025, because I still haven't slept right since last weekend. We were supposed to do something simple. 4 friends, a rented gîte by the Orth in La Roche-en-Ardenne, a hike to the ruined castle, and a lot of wine to toast Elise's clean break after a rough year. We've known each other since university in Brussels. Me, Elise, Noor, and Maud. We do one of these weekends twice a year. The last one was a rainy spa thing near Spa, where nothing happened beyond bad karaoke. Saturday, October 11th, 2025, we drove down in the silver hatchback Noor's cousin lent us, playlists humming, the hills turning the color of rust, everything feeling exactly normal in the way you don't notice until it isn't. The owner left the key under a rock shaped like a heart, of course. Inside, rough stone walls, a fireplace with a pile of wood, and a picture on the mantle of the castle with a caption about an old countess who keeps watch over the river. The woman at the village shop had told us the same thing when we bought cheese and a bottle of pois. Don't walk by the water after dark. The lady doesn't like company. Elise rolled her eyes and said, "Legends are just tourism with cobwebs." We laughed and promised each other spooky photos at the ruins before dusk. On the way up, the river looked like wet slate. Noor said the town looked like a postcard from October, all steam rising off coffee cups. Halfway across the little footbridge, our phones all lost time for a blink. My lock screen flickered from 1632 to 1626 and back again. And we heard something thin and bell-like, as if the air had a glass in it. Maud said it was the flag ropes smacking a pole on the hill. When we reached the other side, I glanced back and thought I saw a pale figure standing in the willows by the opposite bank. The way you see people in steam and then can't find them again. At the top, the castle was a lace of stone and old wind. A plaque told a story I only half read, about a woman who waited and waited for a man who never came back from the river. Maybe I'm mixing it up now. Elise posed like a tragic duchess, one hand to her forehead, and Noor did the thing with the sun behind her. Maud took a panoramic of all 4 of us, but when we checked it, our bodies blurred in a way that made my stomach cold. It wasn't motion blur. It was like the edges of our faces had been dipped in running water. We joked about posting Haunted Girls Trip and kept walking along the ramparts as the light thinned to copper. On the way down, an old woman with a white dog told us to take care near the water because "Elle marche ce soir," which we half understood as some "she walks tonight" drama. Elise said in her posh French that the only thing walking was our hunger, and the old woman didn't smile. By the time we hit the bridge again, the lamps had stuttered on and the river felt louder. I tried the bridge rail with my fingers and pulled back. It was slick and somehow warm, like a hand had just been there. We ate late and drank pear brandy and argued about whether the ghost in these stories is supposed to be angry or just sad. Noor said, "What's the difference if you're dead and wet all the time?" At 22:11, I WhatsApp Goop pinged with a message saying, "Where is the river? I can't find the river." It was from Elise, her name and profile photo, while Elise was sitting cross-legged 2 meters away from me. She showed me her screen. No sent message. Maud said it was a glitch and poured more brandy. I wanted to reply with a joke and found for no good reason that I couldn't type. A little after midnight, something tapped across the ceiling above the hearth. Light steps, as if a child or somebody barefoot pacing. Noor said squirrels. Then something dragged like wet fabric. None of us wanted to mention the footprints near the door we were certain hadn't been there earlier. 2 sets, small, like the print of soaked stockings. We climbed to the attic because women go toward the noise when we're together and stupid. Under the dormer was a cedar trunk. Inside, a length of veil yellowed to cream, a brooch shaped like the head of a boar, and a lace glove stiff as paper. Everything smelled like a drawer that had been full of rain for a century. We went back down and pretended to watch an old Belgian comedy while the fire guttered to smoke and the room went colder than the night outside. Another WhatsApp came at 047, "Let me in." From Elise again, from her account, as she fell asleep against my shoulder. I didn't want to wake her because the exhaustion coming off her was its own weather. At 02:59, Maud said, "Guys," she held my phone like a dead bird. She'd been flipping through our photos to find something to DM her sister and stopped on the castle selfie we'd taken at sunset. There were 5 of us in it. The 5th wore a long white dress and a veil, and where her face should have been, the pixels had liquefied. At 33:11, the knocks came again, not from above, but from the back door. 4 gentle taps, like a request. Elise stood up in her sleep, walked to the handle, and whispered, "He's at the water." We caught her by her wrists. She fought us for a second, then sagged, eyes open and baby blue with fear. The door didn't rattle. It was polite. I looked through the curtain and saw a woman in the garden, turned toward the river the way flowers turn to sun. When she turned her head, where there should be a face was a surface in motion, silver black like the earth, slipping past rocks. Noor dialed 112. The phone showed no service, though 3 bars glowed. We thought if we got to the car, we could leave her there, like a bad idea you outpace. Elise kept trying to look back at the garden. "She thinks we took him," she said, voice small. "Or that we are him." Noor had the keys, or thought she did. She'd set them in a ceramic bowl on the sideboard. The bowl was empty. We checked every pocket, every bag, under the blankets, under cushions, under the cedar trunk. When we finally opened the door, the garden smell came in, clear water and old leaves, and the white dress was standing at the hedge, hands folded like a saint. The car sat under the one street lamp like a thing displayed. On the passenger seat lay the boarhead brooch from the attic, beaded with water, as if it had been dredged from the river and placed there by a careful hand. The car was locked. The key fob wouldn't answer, even when Noor pressed it so hard her thumb got white. Elise breathed on the window and wrote BERTHE in a trembling line. I have no idea why she wrote that. I snapped, "Stop!" She looked at me like a child caught saying a forbidden rhyme. We took the high road away from the water's lip. The white dress didn't follow across the grass. She walked in the direction of the river as if tethered to it. The road was a necklace of puddles. In each one, the reflection of a woman stood, not always in the same place. Sometimes she was closer in the reflection than the real distance explained. I tried to step around each mirror. The air tasted like cold coins. "Don't look down," Maud said, and of course I looked. In a puddle not 6 inches wide, a face of moving water turned the way an animal turns when you say its name. We made for the footbridge because it was the shortest way into the lit part of town. The figure stopped at the near end and stood with her head tilted, as if listening to the current. Halfway across, Elise slowed. "He called my name," she said, and leaned toward the rail. Noor held her waist. I said Elise out loud and felt the word hit the fog and bounce back damp. On the far side, a light glowed in a bakery kitchen. A woman inside, maybe 50, saw us and came to the door with flour on her apron, expression changing when she saw our faces. She let us in and locked the door and poured tea that tasted like life. Without asking questions, she shook a line of salt across the threshold and said, "You don't answer the water when it speaks. It's the oldest thing, and it only knows how to want." We tried to explain the messages and the brooch and the woman. The baker nodded once and said people still go up to the ruins on the wrong nights and come back with the river in their eyes. "Sometimes she follows," she said. "Sometimes she just remembers you." We waited on the warm tile until the sky went from black to pewter. By morning, the river sounded ordinary again, like a long exhale. The gîte garden was empty. the grass pressed flat where we'd stood. We packed in a hurry, not talking, because you can damage a story by naming it too quickly. Noor's phone made a happy ping. Service back. A dozen missed calls from her mother about a job interview. Elise took a slow shower and came down with her hair in a towel, eyes red like she'd been swimming. Maybe I drank too much, she said, which was her way of forgiving herself for whatever that was at the door. We drove back to Brussels with the radio off because everything on the radio would have sounded like somebody lying. On the center console lay the boarhead brooch, dry as a museum piece. Noor swore she hadn't brought it. She'd left it in the trunk in the attic. We watched it through the whole drive as if it could roll by itself. At a rest stop, I opened maps to check the timeline of our photos. The castle selfie had lost the fifth figure. It was just the four of us again, hair thrown by the wind, ridiculous and alive. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt like a hand had lifted off my mouth, and now I could hear my own breathing. Yesterday, Thursday, October 16th, I was home alone after work. I finally let my phone make one of those auto albums it's always nagging about. It had recognized a new person and suggested a name I hadn't typed. Berthe. The face circle was a Blake oval that, when I pressed it, shivered like the air above a kettle. I don't know enough about the local legends to tell you the right name, but that's the one on the plaque, I think. That's the one Elise wrote in breath on the car window. I closed the screen and found that my kitchen tap was hissing a thin thread of water, though the handle was pushed fully off. On the table were two things I hadn't left there: the boarhead brooch and the folded scrap of lace, stiff with old damp. I woke at 3:11 this morning to the precise quietness I now recognize. My phone lit itself. A message from an unsaved number. Where is the river? I can't find the river. I went to the door because of course I did. Because the parts of us that are scared and the parts that are curious share a spine. On the hall tile outside my flat was a single wet footprint, small, like someone in stockings had stepped carefully and gone on. The footprint faced away from my door, toward the stairwell. In the wall light, the old water stains looked like a veil. If you're reading this and planning a weekend in the Ardennes, go. It's beautiful. The baker will save your life with tea that has no recipe. Just don't speak your name near the water after dark. And if something taps like knuckles on wet wood, let it tap and go. Maybe she is a memory of grief that keeps walking. Older than maps, older than stories. Maybe she is exactly the person the plaque says she is. All I know is that when the river is loud and the lamps stutter, the air will take the shape of someone and ask for help in your own voice. And you will want to help. And the help you can give is only to keep walking until you are somewhere the water cannot answer back.